Hello everyone, this is Eagle Owl. Today I'm going to make a video on the reason behind the enactment of the Second Amendment. A lot of people have misperceptions, or they don't truly know at all the reason for it. Most diehard gun owners understand the reason behind the Second Amendment, but a lot of other people don't. You have to start with a history lesson first. When we were migrating here from England, they were being very oppressive with the masses at the time. And they basically had it where there was two groups of people. There was ruling elites who were born into that special privilege, and then there was the masses of peasants that didn't matter. And the masses of peasants were basically no more than they were a source of resources for the ruling elite. They were a source for the elite to maintain power and wealth and control and money. And during that time, you couldn't speak up. You couldn't give your thoughts on what the government is doing. You couldn't speak up against them. Everything was mostly controlled, and there was no form of dissent in any way, shape, or form. And whenever we migrated here, we wanted to get away from that oppressive form of tyranny, an oppressive form of government that just basically controls everything you do and doesn't let you have any of your own freedoms. When we got here and we were chased here and we fought them off with our firearms because you couldn't hold up a protest sign and say, look, there's a protest sign, so now back off. The only thing that worked at that time was action, and they were chasing us down to hunt us down and kill us. And like I said, we were trying to get away from that oppression. And so as the Bill of Rights and Constitution were being created, we wanted to guarantee that we had certain guaranteed protected rights that wouldn't be taken away. And we wanted to guarantee that the government would never again in this new country become so powerful and big and oppressive to where we would slip back to the way things were in the country that we came from. So the Constitution and the Bill of Rights was very well thought out so that it couldn't easily be tampered with, altered, or thrown out. There was a lot of systems of checks and balances. For one thing, someone couldn't just go in and suddenly make a new law, throw out a right, and just alter it, because there was the different branches of government, and so there was checks and balances on one group of government and another branch of government. So it was very well thought out by some smart men. But now that we got the history lesson out of the way, the Second Amendment is called the Second Amendment because it's the second one on the list. It was of such a high priority that it was right near the top. The only one above it was the First Amendment and freedom of speech. Freedom of speech was basically the right to speak out, to give your thoughts without fear of repercussions. And where in the lands where we came from, and in other histories that are oppressive throughout history, if you could speak out loud in public and you could get more people to hear truths, and you can start to influence more people, that is dangerous to those who are want to control you. So if you can stamp that out and punish people for speaking out anything that the ruling forces don't want to be heard, then you can maintain control in a country. And that is, they're working on that now with Facebook and GOOGLE, and so they're working on that now. They're heavily working on that. But anyway, I'm not trying to deflect too far, but I'm trying to bring this whole thing into context. The Second Amendment was, if somehow the government should decide to start to become more oppressive, that was a certain check put in there to guarantee that we can prevent that from happening. So it was actually mostly put in there as a way, so if the people were continuously armed, the government is less likely just to come in and do any oppressive thing they want, because they know that the people will not stand for it, and that the people would have the physical ability to stand up if they get too overly oppressed. So it was not designed so that you can take an unloaded weapon and put it in your trunk and drive to a shooting range, shoot a piece of paper, unload it again, drive it back home, and put it in a locked safe. It wasn't designed so that you can go out into the woods, spot a deer, and shoot it. It wasn't a right to guarantee your ability to shoot a deer. Okay? Its major purpose was to prevent the citizens in this new country from being overly oppressed by a dictatorship, by a heavily oppressed government like the one that we came from. That was the main reason for the Second Amendment. It also says words are important, and if you overlook one key word in a sentence, that can make a world of difference. Just overlooking one word and its definition can heavily alter a point that you're trying to make. It says the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. It doesn't say shall not be removed, or the right shall always exist. If it only said it shall not be removed, then they would be saying the right to own arms can't be completely taken away. It is saying shall not be infringed. If you're infringing upon something, you're not completely destroying it. You're not completely taking it away. If you're infringing on something, it means you're applying pressure to it. You're kind of forcing yourself onto something. You're altering it. You're messing with it. You're getting in its own space. So they're saying that the right of the people to own arms shall not be infringed. They're basically saying, don't put pressure on those rights. Don't mess with the rights. Okay? And then what the anti-gun politicians do is they know in a society that has had firearms for hundreds of years, you can't just wake up one morning and say, here's the new law, no more guns. Like, that would go over like a lead balloon. They know they can't do it suddenly, and they can't say they want to take your guns away. So what they do is they say, we only want common sense gun legislation, just common sense. If it saves one life, it's worth restricting however many million gun owners' rights. If it just saves one life, okay. And so they say we just want common sense gun legislation. And so what they'll do is they'll introduce something small, see how much pushback there is. There's always some amount of pushback, but if it's an acceptable amount of pushback, then they say it wasn't that bad. And then a little bit later, a couple years down the line, they introduce something just one more step higher, and then they come at you again with this. It's just common sense gun laws. Nobody needs this. Nobody needs that. We have to think about the kids. We're not trying to take anything away. They do it in little steps, With any new agenda that powers that be want to introduce to society, they don't normally go from nothing to the next morning, full tilt, here's the agenda, 100% in your face. You have to do it in steps. It's called the bullfrog in the water, which most people know about. You throw a bullfrog in boiling hot water, the first thing it wants to do is jump out. If you put it in water that's the perfect temperature for that bullfrog, and you raise it a third of a degree, it'll stay in there. And then later, another third of a degree. You do it slowly and slowly and slowly. you have more effect. It doesn't jump right out. So that is the reason for the Second Amendment. Its primary goal was to ensure that our government in this new world does not suddenly become tyrannical and oppressive like the world we came from. Now, there's also an argument, there's many arguments that ignorant people throw your way. One of the common arguments they throw your way is, well, what is a 9mm handgun going to do against tanks that are rolling down your street? Now, granted, rock, paper, scissors, 9mm handgun does not beat an army tank. But that's not the point. At the time those rights were created, the only technology that existed at the time, that same amount of technology for its price and the technology that it was, could also be in the hands of civilians, and it could be in the hands of the newly forming government that wasn't that extensive at the time. So the fact that the government has taken billions and billions and billions of dollars from everyone's paycheck and used that technology to create larger, more powerful, more deadly, more destructive weapons that can be used against people does not negate the reason for the Second Amendment in the first place, which was that an armed society is less likely to be overran by an oppressive government. If you check out the history of oppressive societies in the past, the societies where they were never allowed to own guns anyway, their job was already done for them. They oppress them however they want. There's no resistance. But in countries where they did overpower the people and just like destroy their own people, in the countries where people used to be allowed to own guns, before the full oppression comes in, what they had to do in those countries is they had to ban guns. They had to get them out of the hands of the citizens. Now, once they got those away from the citizens under false premises, now they would come in and then the slaughter would begin. And all you have to do is know your history, or even if you don't currently know your history, do research on history to find out time and time again in numerous instances, in numerous countries in the past, the citizens are always disarmed before the intense oppression begins. So that's a brief explanation of the reason for the Second Amendment. It's Eagle Owl videos, hopefully weekly, workout related, obviously gun related, freedom related, patriotic, and a little bit of philosophy here and there. Hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.